Welcome back to Homeovision and a very good day to all of you watching this video. I am Dr. Gauthami Deshmukh and I will be doing a series of videos and lectures on Organon of medicine and homeopathic philosophy. In this video, let us discuss the first aphorism and its footnote written by Dr. Samuel Hahnemann in his sixth edition of Organon of Medicine. So as you can see here, this first aphorism has the aphorism itself, and we have a footnote to this aphorism. Let us read the first aphorism. In this aphorism, Hahnemann tells us that the physician's high and only mission is to restore the sick to health and to cure, as it is termed. So here, in this aphorism, Hahnemann is trying to tell us what the primary duty of a physician is. What what is the objective or what is the most important duty of a physician is. So here we can see that Hahnemann has used this phrase, the high and only mission, physician's high and only mission. So what he's trying to tell us here is that a physician has a number of roles to play. A physician has to be a therapeutist sometimes, as in dispensing medicines to cure people. He will have to be a diagnostician sometimes. He will have to be a prognostician sometimes. And sometimes he will also have to be a preserver of health and also a person who prevents diseases. So, amongst all these roles that a physician has to play, the highest and the most important role that a physician will have to play is restoring the sick to health. Here we can see that a very new phrase. This is a for beginners. This phrase is going to seem very new. What does this mean? What does restoring the sick to health mean? In homeopathy, what we will have to understand is that we do not use the word disease or sickness. So we do not use the word disease or sickness. Instead, we use the word sick. So here, sick is the man who is suffering from a particular disease. So the sick refers to the entire man, to the whole man. He is the whole man who is suffering from the disease. So here, restoring the sick to health means we have a man who is in a diseased state. Okay, we have a man who is in a diseased state, and we have to bring this man back to his original healthy state. So this is what Hahnemann is trying to tell us. Hahnemann also tells us that there are no diseases, but there are sick people. There are sick men. We do not have diseases as such. Diseases are just names that are given to the suffering of men. But what we see in reality is the man who is suffering. It is the man who is suffering, and the sick man is whom we have to cure. So this is what Hahnemann is trying to tell us. So here, according to Hahnemann, cure means bringing back a man to his healthy state from his diseased state. There is also one more concept that we will have to understand. Um, Removing a symptom or removing a disease is as simple as you have a fever, you give this patient an antipyretic, and the fever is not there. So what have we done here? What we have done here is a mere removal of the symptom. We have just removed the symptom. When there is a fever and you give this person an antipyretic, you are just removing the symptom. This is not something that we want in homeopathy. We do not want this. We do not want to simply remove the fever from this patient. Instead, we want to restore him to his healthy state. So, in the background of this, we have to come across one more concept, and that is vital force. Whenever the vital force, we have something called as a vital force in our body, and whenever the vital force is in equilibrium, whenever the vital force is working harmoniously or whenever it is in harmony, we have something called as a healthy state or we have health. So, in homeopathy, Hahnemann defines health as a state where the vital force is harmoniously functioning. Whenever this vital force, so we have vital force, whenever the vital force is disturbed or whenever the vital force is deranged, disturbed or deranged, that is when we call it as a diseased state. And whenever the vital force is deranged, we see that this deranged vital force will express itself in the form of symptoms, in the form of multiple symptoms. So um, that is how a disease is expressed, or that is how a disease is represented. So this is the concept of disease in homeopathy. What happens in the popular system of medicine, or what happens in allopathy, is that they just try to remove this particular symptom and call it as cure. But in homeopathy, we try to we try to treat the root cause. That is, we want to treat the deranged vital force. The diseased vital force has to be brought back to its healthy state. So this is what Hahnemann means when he says restore the sick to health. So it is the man whom we have to treat. It is the deranged vital force. It is the suffering man whom we have to treat, and not the mere removal of diseases or not the mere removal of a symptom. This is what he says in this aphorism. Now, in the background of this, we have the footnote coming up. As we can see, we have a huge footnote to this aphorism 1. What I will do is I will give a brief gist of what this footnote means, and then let us have a look at the meaning of few of the words in this footnote. So Hahnemann was not happy with what the doctors of his time were doing. He says that the doctors of his time were more concerned about coming up with explanations as to how a disease was being caused, how a disease progressed inside the internal organism. He says that physicians were wasting all their time and talent in guessing and coming up with theories as to how a disease progressed inside the organism. He says that the primary role or the mission of a physician is not to come up with theories that explain diseases. He says that the high and only mission of a physician is to cure the sick, is to help those patients who are suffering from a disease. But the doctors of his time were more concerned with coming up with theories and giving countless explanations about these diseases. And what these physicians did was they did all this guesswork, they came up with all these theories, and they put forth all these theories in front of the patients. And these patients would obviously be shocked. They would be astonished by listening to all these huge um, medical terms, those words, some words that they could not understand. So this is not what the patients wanted. That is what Hahnemann is trying to tell us in this footnote. The role of a physician is not to give explanations about diseases to the patients. Instead, he should relieve them from their suffering. The patients do not want any explanations as to how a disease is progressing inside the organism. All they want is relief from suffering. So he says the doctors of his time were cheating all the patients. The physicians were deceiving the sick by uh, giving all these countless, unintelligible, complicated explanations. But he says it is now high time to stop doing all of this. It is high time to stop deceiving the patients, and now is the right time to start acting towards helping and curing the sick. This is what he says in this footnote. Now, let us have a look at a few of the words. He says in this footnote, his mission is not, however, to construct so called systems by interweaving. Interweaving is combining or mixing empty speculations. Speculations means guesswork. Okay, guessing. They just merely guessed how a disease was taking place because the technology in those times were not as advanced as it is now. Speculations, hypotheses are theories that were not yet proved. Hypothesis concerning the internal essential nature of the vital processes and the mode in which diseases originate in the invisible interior of the organism. Whereon so many physicians have hitherto ambitiously wasted their talents and their time, nor is it an attempt to give countless explanations regarding the phenomena in diseases and their proximate cause, which must ever remain concealed. So he says the physician's work is to not give explanations about the cause or the progress of a disease inside the organism. It is better if it is concealed. Wrapped in unintelligible words. Unintelligible means impossible to understand. So all these theories were presented to the patient in unintelligible words, in ways that a layman could not understand, and an inflated, abstract mode of expression. Inflated is a small issue being presented as a huge problem. Inflation, inflated, and an inflated abstract mode of expression, which should sound very learned in order to astonish the ignorant, while sick humanity sighs in vain for aid. Of such learned reveries, so to which the name theoretic medicine is given, and for which special professorships are instituted. So he says to all these theories and explanations that were merely based on guesswork was given a term, and that was theoretic medicine. And to this theoretic medicine, special degrees were given. We have had quite enough, and it is now high time that all who call themselves physicians should at length cease to deceive suffering mankind with mere talk and begin now, instead for once, to act, that is really to help and to cure. If there are any doubts or questions regarding aphorism number one and its footnote, please feel free to put up your questions in the comment section. Do like and subscribe the channel for more content. Thank you. Welcome back to Homeovision and a very good day to all of you. I am Dr. Gauthami Deshmukh, and in this second video of Organon of Medicine series, we will be discussing about aphorism number two. Let us now have a look at the aphorism number two. In this aphorism, Hahnemann talks about the highest ideal of cure. So, what do we mean by the highest ideal of cure? We can interpret this as the highest level close to perfection that one can attain. Let me write this down. The highest level close to perfection that one can attain in cure. So, this is what Hahnemann is trying to tell us. In this aphorism, Hahnemann gives us the qualities of an ideal cure. Now, what are these qualities? Let us have a look at that. So, he says an ideal cure must be rapid, it must be gentle, it must be permanent, and it has to be complete removal of the disease. Complete removal of disease. Of course, shortest, harmless, and based on easily comprehensible principles. Okay, which is it's written over here. Based on easily comprehensible principles. So these are the qualities of an ideal cure. It has to be rapid, gentle, and permanent restoration of the health or removal and annihilation of the disease in its whole extent in the shortest, most harmless way and on easily comprehensible principles. Now let us learn what each word means. Okay, now when we say rapid, of course, we have a deceased man who is in suffering. He already has a lot of pain and agony, and what he desires is a speedy recovery. And what we desire is to give him a speedy cure. So, this is what Hahnemann is trying to tell us, that an ideal cure must obviously be rapid. We have to relieve the sufferings of our patient as fast as possible. Now, what does he mean by the word gentle? Gentle means we should not be adopting any harmful methods of treatment. We should not be adopting any harmful methods of treatment. He says that our sick man, our patient, is already in a lot of suffering. He is already in a lot of pain and agony. The methods of treatment that we employ must not add on to his sufferings. It has to be gentle. The treatment that we give him should not give him much more pain. Instead, it has to be gentle and it has to be harmless. The reason why he talks about cure being gentle is that during Hahnemann's time, a lot of harmful and torturesome practices like leeching, blistering, venesection, use of purgatives, use of emetics, all these practices and methods of treatments were very much popular and very much prevalent during his time. So he says all these methods of treatments were in fact adding on to the suffering of the patient. It was giving them much more pain than that person was already in. So he says our method of treatment or our cure must be gentle and it should not add fuel to the fire that the patient is already in. This is the meaning of gentle. And now he says permanent restoration of the health. Whenever we are treating a patient, I always take this example of fever and antipyretics. If a person has a fever and if we give him an antipyretic, the antipyretic will maybe act for 4 or 5 hours, and during the duration of the action, the fever will subside, and the after the duration of action of that particular antipyretic, the temperature will rise again. Can this be called as a cure? Definitely not, because there is a recurrence of the symptom. So this cannot be called as cure. So therefore, Hahnemann says that there has to be a permanent restoration of health. If there are any recurrence of symptoms, then this cannot be termed as cure. So he says cure must always be permanent, and he also uses the word removal and annihilation. Annihilation means complete destruction, okay, of the disease in its whole extent. So let us understand one concept over here. We have the vital force, which in in its state of equilibrium, whenever the vital force is functioning harmoniously, we are in a state of health. But whenever the vital force is deranged, a deranged vital force will manifest itself in the form of symptoms, many symptoms, correct? Now, this set of symptoms is going to be called as a disease. Okay, the set of symptoms is called as a disease. So, what Hahnemann is trying to tell us in this aphorism is that removal of one or two symptoms cannot be called as a cure. We need to annihilate or remove this entire disease, by which he means that all the symptoms of a disease have to be removed. And in order to remove all the symptoms of a disease, we will have to treat the deranged vital force. So he says restoration of health. This is what he means by restoration of health. He says that the deranged vital force has to be brought back to its healthy, harmonious state. That is the restoration uh, of the sick person to his healthy state. So the disease in its whole extent has to be removed. Removal of one or two symptoms cannot be termed as cure. All the symptoms and the complete entire disease has to be removed, and in the most harmless way. As already discussed, harmful or torturesome practices must not be used. And in very simple layman terms, we should also use medicines that do not give them side effects. Okay, so in the most harmless way and based on easily comprehensible principles. The word comprehensible means easily understandable principles. So the principles that are cure should be based on have to be easily understandable principles. So the principles which are easily understandable are going to be the laws of nature. The laws of nature are always fixed. They are not ever changing, unlike many other laws that are prevalent. The laws of nature are always fixed and they're very easy to understand. And a method of cure or a method of treatment that is based on these easily comprehensible laws of nature are going to be very, very reliable. So these are the qualities of, of, a, of an ideal cure. Here, I would also like to add a high point, which is useful for our PG exams. The criteria for an ideal cure was actually first stated or advocated by a Greek physician. Sorry, yeah, a Greek physician named Asclepiades in 124 BC. So he gives this statement. He says, "Cito tuto et jucunde," which means a disease should be treated speedily, safely, and agreeably. If there are any questions, please feel free to put them in the comment section. Like and subscribe for more content. Thank you for watching. Welcome back to Homeo Vision and a very good day to all of you. I am Dr. Gauthami Deshmukh, and in this third video of Organon of Medicine series, let us understand aphorism number 3. First, let us read out the third aphorism. Alright, so here Hahnemann says, if the physician clearly perceives, let us make a note of this word, perceives. If the physician clearly perceives what is to be cured in diseases, that is to say, in every individual case of disease, if he clearly perceives what is curative in medicines, that is to say, in each individual medicine, and if he knows how to adapt according to clearly defined principles what is curative in medicines to what he has discovered to be undoubtedly morbid in the patient, so that the recovery must ensue, to adapt it well in respect to the suitability of the medicine, most appropriate according to its mode of action to the case before him, as also in respect to the exact mode of preparation and quantity of it required, and the proper period of and the proper period for repeating the dose. If finally he knows the obstacles to recovery in each case and is aware how to remove them so that the restoration may be permanent, then he understands how to treat judiciously and rationally, and he is a true practitioner of the healing art. So this is a huge aphorism, and in this video, I will just be giving a brief description of what this aphorism means. But in order to get a in-depth understanding of what this aphorism actually means, I would definitely recommend all of you to please go through Organon of Medicine by B.K. Sarkar and A.K. Das to get a deeper understanding of what this aphorism is trying to tell us. Now, let us have a look at what this aphorism means. So, in this aphorism, Hahnemann is trying to tell us what must a physician know in order to treat judiciously and rationally, and what must a physician know in order to become a true practitioner of the healing art. So, here the healing art definitely refers to our homeopathic system of medicine. So, in this aphorism, he is telling what knowledge must a physician acquire in order to treat his patients judiciously and rationally, and in order to become a true practitioner of the healing art. One more thing that we have to pay attention here is throughout the aphorism, he has used a phrase that is to clearly perceive. So, what does this word perceive mean? Perceive means to not merely look upon something. Uh, Perceive actually means to understand something with reasoning. So, understanding with reasoning to apprehend that particular thing and to analyze the patient and his suffering when we have a patient in front of us. So, we should not just merely look upon something and try to assume things about it, but instead we will have to perceive the suffering or the patient who is suffering right in front of us. We must understand, reason, and analyze whatever is there in front of us. So, this is one word that Hahnemann is trying to emphasize upon. Next, let us have a look at the knowledge that a physician must acquire in order to become a true practitioner of the healing art. So, here we have Hahnemann, he says, uh, a physician must clearly perceive what is to be cured in a disease. So he says the knowledge of the disease is very important for a physician. So a physician must know all the symptoms that comprise a disease. He must know what common symptoms the disease will exhibit. And only if he knows the common symptoms, only then will he be able to individualize a patient homeopathically. Isn't it right? So once we know a disease and its symptoms, we will know what the common symptoms of a disease are. So once we know the common symptoms of a disease, when a patient presents to us, we will also know the uncommon symptoms, as in we will also know the PQRS of the patient. Thereby, we will be able to individualize a patient, which is something very important and peculiar to our system of medicine. Here, Hahnemann also tries to tell us that the disease that he is referring to here is not just the structural or the pathological changes. It is not just the disease name that he is referring to, but he is referring to the condition of the whole suffering living organism. So he is referring to the condition of the suffering living organism. Okay, so we must clearly perceive the condition, the symptoms, and the signs of the suffering patient who is right there in front of us. It is not the structural or the pathological changes that we must pay attention to, but instead we will have to pay attention to the symptoms of the deranged vital force. Symptoms of the deranged vital force. This is what Hahnemann is trying to tell us. So, the physician must clearly perceive the knowledge of the disease, and he must also know, by knowing the common and the uncommon symptoms, he must also know what is curable in a disease, what symptoms are curable in a disease, or what is to be cured in a disease. This is the first prerequisite or first knowledge that a physician must acquire. Second, he says that a physician must clearly perceive the curative properties of a medicine. He says the curative properties of a medicine is also very important. And as a homeopath, we all know that the medicines are proved in our system proved on healthy human beings. I'm going to abbreviate this as HHB. It is healthy human beings. So when a when a drug is proved on healthy human beings, we get a set of symptoms. These set of symptoms are the symptoms that this medicine or this remedy can cure in a deceased patient. So this is the knowledge of medicine that we need to have. We will have to individually prove every remedy or every drug on a healthy human being and collect the set of symptoms. So whatever set of symptoms that we will be obtaining at the end of this proving is going to tell us what disease symptoms that particular medicine can cure in a deceased individual. Third, third, he talks about the knowledge of application of the drug knowledge to the disease knowledge. So now we have on examining the patient, we will get the symptoms of the patient. So now we have obtained the symptoms of the patient. Next, by all the drug proving that is done, we also know the symptoms of our drug, symptoms of our medicine or drug. Let us just write it this way: symptoms of the medicine and drug. Now, based on a particular law and based on defined principles, we will match these two set of symptoms. So we will have to match the symptoms of the patient to the symptoms of the medicine or drug. And by doing so, on matching these two, we will end up getting something called as the similimum. So this is the third point. So in the third point, he says the physician must clearly know how to adapt the drug knowledge to the disease knowledge. So we are going to apply this disease knowledge to the drug knowledge on basis of a principle, that is the law of similars. So based on the law of similars, here we are matching the symptoms of the medicine to the symptoms of the patient, and that particular remedy that we end up having at the end of this process is going to be called as the similimum. So the defined principle being used here is the law of similars, that is the similia similibus curantur. So these are the first three prerequisites that a physician must have. Going ahead, Hahnemann also says that the physician must know the choice of remedy. He must be able to correctly choose the remedy, again based on the law of similars. Law of similars, and based on the materia medica knowledge that he has, we will have to match the symptoms of the drug and symptoms of the disease with each other based on this law of similars and come down to a similimum, which is going to be administered to the patient. Not just the right remedy, but a physician must also know its exact mode of preparation. So the mode of preparation of different remedies or different drugs and medicines, this we learn it in our pharmacy subject. So a knowledge of the pharmacy and knowledge of the mode of preparation is also equally important for a physician. Next is knowledge of the proper dose that is required and knowledge of repetition of dose. So the knowledge of the proper dose and repetition of dose is referred to as posology. Posology is as important as the correct choice of the medicine. Sometimes what happens is that we will come down to a similimum very confidently. The remedy is perfect. But when you make a mistake in the dosage and the repetition of this particular dose, we might not be able to bring about a cure in the patient. So this posology is as important as the correct choice of remedy. This is something that we must know. We will talk about posology in detail in the upcoming aphorisms, but for now, let us know that the knowledge of the proper dose of the remedy that we have selected and the knowledge of the repetition of dose of the remedy that we have selected is as important as the remedy that we have chosen itself. Lastly, the physician must also know the obstacles to cure. What might prevent a cure in this particular patient? So he must know the obstacles to cure and its removal. Say, for example, we have a patient coming up with some gastric symptoms, and these gastric symptoms are because of overeating. So we know that, and we have a patient presenting with these gastric symptoms, and we give him a medicine. But he doesn't stop overeating. He's still overeating. In that case, what is happening? Our remedy is not working on him because there is a maintaining cause, because there is a precipitating cause that is still existing. So now this overeating becomes an obstacle to our cure. So in such cases, the physician must be able to identify this particular obstacle to cure, and he must regulate the food habits of that particular patient. By doing so, we will be able to remove the obstacle to the cure. So these are the prerequisites, or these are the knowledge that a physician must acquire in order to treat his patients judiciously, rationally, and also in order to become a true practitioner of the healing art. So this is a very brief explanation of what aphorism number 3 is trying to tell us. If there are any questions, please put them up in the comment box below. Uh, do subscribe, like, and share for more content. Thank you. Welcome back to Homeovision and a very good day to all of you. I am Dr. Gauthami Deshmukh, and in this video of Organon of Medicine series, let us have a quick look at aphorism number 4. Let us read this aphorism once. Aphorism number 4 states this: he is likewise a preserver of health if he knows the things that derange health and cause disease, and how to remove them from persons in health. In this paragraph, he refers to the physician. Hahnemann says that a physician will also have to act as a preserver of health. He says that a physician is not just a person who treats the sick, but he will also have to act as an advisor of health in the society. He will also have to be a preserver of health in the society or community. In order to be a preserver of health, he must have knowledge about the causes of diseases. He must know about those things that cause derangement in the health. And not just this, he must also know how to remove these causes from healthy people so that people in health don't get sick. Therefore, for a physician to be a preserver of health, he must have a good knowledge about the causes of the diseases, about the things that cause derangement of health, and he must also know how to remove these things that cause derangement of health in healthy people so that this physician will be able to prevent these people from getting sick. By this, we must understand that a physician must have a knowledge about the preventive medicine, and public hygiene. The knowledge about preventive medicine and public hygiene will make him a preserver of health, and it can also help him from preventing diseases in his community. Dr. Kent also has a few points to add on to this paragraph. He says that for a homeopath, knowledge of modern causes are not enough. A homeopath must also have a thorough knowledge of the miasms. Now, why so? Because in the further aphorisms, we will be learning that miasms are the causes of true, natural, chronic diseases. Also, in many cases, we will be observing that these miasms also act as obstacles to cure. Such cases will definitely require anti-miasmatic treatment in order to remove miasms as obstacles to their cure and therefore help the person in their recovery. So this is something that Kent is adding on to aphorism number 4. All in all, we can conclude at the end of this aphorism that prevention is better than cure. If there are any questions regarding this video, please feel free to put them in the comment section below. Also, like and subscribe for more content. Thank you. Welcome back to Homeovision and a very good day to all of you. In this video of Organon of Medicine series, let us have a look at the aphorism number 5, and as a continuation of this aphorism, let us also learn about the causes of diseases. Let us read the aphorism first. Useful to the physician in assisting him to cure are the particulars of the most probable exciting cause of the acute disease, as also the most significant points in the whole history of the chronic disease, to enable him to discover the fundamental cause, which is generally due to a chronic miasm. In these investigations, the ascertainable physical constitution of the patient, especially when the disease is chronic, his moral and intellectual character, his occupation, mode of living and habits, his social and domestic relations, his age, sexual function, etc., are to be taken into consideration. A high point for this paragraph is that the fifth aphorism was first introduced in the fourth edition of Organon. So this aphorism first came out in the fourth edition of Organon, and in this aphorism, we can see that Hahnemann is talking about acute diseases, chronic diseases, exciting causes, and fundamental causes. So therefore, through this paragraph, he is giving us a concise idea of case taking, and not only that, he is also pointing out the important things that we have to elicit in the case taking of an acute and a chronic disease. In the first sentence, Hahnemann is trying to talk about exciting causes and acute diseases and fundamental causes and chronic diseases. So through this sentence, we will get to know that in acute diseases, if we are able to identify the exciting causes, these exciting causes will help us in treating the acute disease of the patient. Further, he also says that after the elaborate case taking of a patient suffering from a chronic disease, if we are able to identify or if we are able to discover the fundamental cause, this fundamental cause will again assist or help the physician in treating the chronic disease that the patient is suffering from. Further ahead, he says that if it is a chronic disease, usually the fundamental cause is going to be a chronic miasm. And we can identify the chronic miasm through the detailed case taking that we do in cases of a patient suffering from chronic diseases. So further ahead, he talks about the points that we will have to elicit or the points that we will have to cover while doing a case taking of a chronic disease. So he says that especially when the disease is chronic, we will have to ascertain or we will have to um, elicit and identify the physical constitution of a patient. We will have to elicit the physical constitution of a patient. We will also have to uh, elicit his moral and intellectual character, his occupation. We will have to ask about his occupation, his mode of living, his habits, his social and domestic relations, not only that, his age and sexual functions. So, in a chronic disease case taking, all these accessory circumstances, that is, the constitution of the patient, the moral and intellectual character, his occupation, mode of living, habits, social relations, domestic relations, sexual function, and his age. All of this is going to be very important in the case taking of a chronic disease. And through all these points, one will be able to identify the fundamental cause of the chronic disease that this patient is suffering from. So, this is a very brief gist of the aphorism number 5. Okay, so as already discussed earlier, at the end of a detailed case taking in a chronic disease, the physician will now be able to discover the fundamental cause, which is going to be, so the fundamental cause, which is usually a chronic miasm, which is a miasm. So what are these miasms? So this miasm can be psora, psychosis, or syphilis. So at the end of the case taking of a chronic disease, the physician will now be able to ascertain or discover which miasm the patient belongs to. And once this discovery has been made, it will be easier for the physician to treat this patient. All right. Now let us talk about the three different causes of diseases. And these are, as you can see on the screen, exciting causes, fundamental causes, and maintaining causes. Let us understand what these causes mean. The first one is exciting cause. We will learn more about exciting cause in aphorism number 73. So when we come to that, we will learn about the different types of exciting causes and the importance of exciting causes. But for now, let us understand what an exciting cause means. So as simple as it sounds, an exciting cause is a cause that excites a disease condition, which means it is a cause that triggers some suffering in a particular individual. Now, let us understand this with an example. Say we have a patient who comes to us and says that after drenching in the rain for a considerable amount of time, he is now suffering from coryza, that is, he is now suffering from cold. So, here the drenching in the rain, okay, getting wet in the rain or drenching in the rain can be taken as the exciting cause. So, drenching in the rain led him to catch a cold. So, here drenching in the rain becomes the exciting cause. So, it is a very simple cause that has excited coryza or cold in this particular individual. So, this is what an exciting cause is. For more examples, for say we have a patient who comes to us saying after walking in the sun for a very long time, that is after prolonged exposure to heat or excessive exposure to heat, he started having a headache. So here, exposure to heat or exposure to excessive heat can be taken as the exciting cause. We can also have another patient coming to us and saying that after having ice creams, cold drinks, and also after being exposed to a lot of cold air, he has he has ended up having coryza and cough. So here again, exposure to excessive cold can be taken as an exciting cause. There's also one more important thing that we'll have to know about an exciting cause. It is that an exciting cause can cause an indisposition. We will talk about indispositions later, but for now, just know this that an exciting cause can cause an indisposition. It can cause an acute suffering, that is, an acute disease. Exciting causes can also cause an acute suffering in a chronic case. Acute suffering in a chronic case, and this is usually and popularly called as acute exacerbation of a chronic disease. So as told earlier, we will be discussing about all these types of exciting causes, the importance, and what all the exciting causes can cause in aphorism number 73. But for now, we have to know that eliciting an exciting cause, such as drenching in the rain, having cold food, or getting exposed to excessive heat, these are all exciting causes, and eliciting these exciting causes can become very important in the selection of a remedy in acute cases. Okay, one more high point that we have to know about exciting causes is that the exciting cause cannot cause a disease, or the exciting cause cannot cause a suffering without the presence or without the influence of an underlying miasm in an individual. So, what this means is that only if the person is susceptible to being affected by a particular exciting cause, only then can this exciting cause bring about a disease or a suffering in this particular individual. And how is this predisposition, or how is this person made susceptible to a particular cause, say excessive heat or excessive exposure to cold? How is he made liable to this particular cold or excessive heat? That is because of the presence of an underlying miasm. Say, for example, SORA. So, only if there's an underlying miasm like SORA, this can make a person very sensitive to cold, and the slightest exposure to cold air or draft of cold air can make him end up with a cold or a cough. The next cause that we have to discuss about is the fundamental cause. Now, the fundamental cause is nothing but the chronic miasms. And as already discussed earlier, the chronic miasms are SORA, psychosis, and syphilis. Again, as discussed earlier, we said that only if there's an underlying miasm present, only then can an exciting cause bring about a suffering in this person. So as you can see, only if there is this fundamental cause, only if there is an underlying miasm, only if there is SORA, psychosis, or syphilis present in an individual, only then can any cause take an effect in that particular individual. So this is one of the reasons again why fundamental cause that is sorry I'm sorry this is why chronic miasms are called as fundamental causes. So only in the presence of chronic miasms can a person suffer from a disease. This is all that we have to know under this aphorism. But yes, also much more importantly, fundamental causes are the causes that bring about, or these are the causes that are responsible for the development of true natural chronic diseases. It is true natural chronic diseases. Let us emphasize on this word here. We will learn the importance of this word in the upcoming aphorisms. So far we know that exciting causes mainly are responsible for acute diseases, and fundamental causes, that is the chronic miasms, are mainly responsible for true natural chronic diseases. Now, what are maintaining causes? Maintaining causes, there's a very popular phrase to define maintaining cause, and that is avoidable noxious influence. So, maintaining causes are popularly defined as avoidable noxious influence. Let us break this up. Avoidable meaning something that can be prevented. prevented, and this kind of a cause is in the hands of the patient himself. So avoidable, noxious meaning dangerous or harmful. Influence here is nothing but the situation or the cause. So maintaining causes are called as avoidable noxious influences, and these are responsible for the development of something called as a pseudo-chronic disease. Pseudo again meaning false. So in the previous section, we saw that fundamental causes are responsible for true chronic diseases, and here maintaining causes are responsible for false chronic diseases or pseudo-chronic diseases. Okay, now let us take an example to understand this maintaining cause better. Say we have a tobacco smoker who is suffering with persistent cough. So here smoking is the maintaining cause, meaning smoking is maintaining the disease, that is the persistent cough over here. So as long as this individual is smoking, he will continue to suffer with this cough. So the moment you cut off the smoking, so if we tell him to stop smoking, his cough will also become better, his disease will disappear. So that is why maintaining causes are called as avoidable, avoidable noxious influences. Also, let us take another example, malnutrition. Malnutrition here, what is happening in this case? The insufficient nutrition is considered as the maintaining cause. So if you correct the diet of this particular individual, all his symptoms will improve. His malnutrition will cease to exist. So maintaining cause is something that is avoidable. So once, as long as the maintaining cause is there, the chronic disease or the so-called chronic disease will exist. That is why this is called as a false chronic disease or a pseudo-chronic disease. The moment we eliminate this maintaining cause, we can eliminate the chronic disease as well. So these are the three causes in uh, in very brief. We will we shall end this video over here. If there are any doubts, please do put them up in the comment section below. Also, like and subscribe for more content. Thank you.